that. But first, let's talk about professional tennis, because the brilliant female number one, Naomi Osaka, has pulled out of the French Open in a row over her refusal to take part in post-match press conferences, which she says have impacted her mental health. Joining me to discuss this rather thorny issue is the former programme controller at TalkSport, which is the biggest sports radio station in the world. It's Steve Morgan. Hi, Steve.
Mark, thank you for having me on the show.
Look, it's great to have you on the show because, plot spoiler, you are now the executive producer of this programme. So your career is just going up, up, up.
Well, it was true. I was able to pull a few strings to get on here. I know people, namely myself.
Listen, I'm not going to lie. This show has hit new heights in the last few months, and that coincides with your arrival here.
I've had nothing to do with it.
You are not just a steady hand at the tiller, you are our inspirational leader. But let's talk about Naomi Osaka. First of all, what an incredible athlete, an amazing tennis player.
Mark, there's two issues here. The first thing is, if she's suffering from mental strain and anxiety, and it's only going to be exacerbated by walking into a room of strangers and have all of your performance and what you say and your body language studied, explored, analysed, and it's causing her ever greater mental strain, then her employers, the tennis authorities, have a duty of care to say, do you know what? Concentrate on your tennis, forget the press conference. It's a very, very small part of what you do. So that's what they should have done first of all, instead of slapping a $15,000 fine on her. And I think in the days
Which,
to come...
by the way, will barely touch the side.
It doesn't matter, Mark.
She's a millionaire.
Doesn't matter, Mark. I think it's about what the tennis authorities' response has been. And I think in the days to come, they are going to look pretty shoddy and out of date with what an employer, because the tennis court is her place of work, and I think they're going to look very poor in the days to come when we take a closer look at this. The second aspect of this story, Mark, which was my overwhelming feeling, was hallelujah. I think not turning up to a press conference, she has done humanity a failure, a great favour. Yes, she's done humanity a favour, because the one thing we don't want and we don't miss is a press conference with a sportsman. In fact, if we never heard from another tennis player, footballer, motor racer again, we would be all the better for it. We wouldn't feel any poorer, because these press conferences, and I speak as someone who has attended plenty of them, are banal beyond belief. The questions are inane. They go nowhere. The sports stars themselves just mumble inanities anyway. I mean, look, what do we expect from these press conferences? Words of wisdom? These people aren't Oscar Wilde. They aren't going to reveal the secrets of the universe. They are sports people who do their talking and express themselves on the field of play. What we don't need is for them to attend these press conferences or post-match interviews where we gain nothing from them and they're utterly pointless.
Well, first of all, we must take her claims of mental health issues very seriously. As on this programme, which you were producing, we took Meghan Markle's remarks about her mental health seriously too. I've got lots of listeners that don't believe what she said, but you cannot, it's he said, she said. So if Naomi Osaka says that she's got depression, then what I would say is you're right, duty of care. What she should do is have a break from tennis, because facing a competitor like Serena Williams in the blazing Florida sunshine for 3 hours can't be very relaxing, can't be great for her mental health either. A few supplementary questions post-match is hardly going to kind of break her mental health. I think that she should just quit tennis until she's better.
Had she have turned up to that press conference, it wouldn't have made headlines. The reason is because they are dull beyond belief. She would have said nothing. The questions would have had no value, because that's what happens in these press conferences. There is nothing there. Mark, I just need to finish this. I just need to finish this.
Go for it.
Because you're saying
where's
about
the dump
her,
button?
You're saying about
I hope
her
you're dumping this. It's all rubbish.
Facing Serena Williams. That is a totally different environment.
A lot more stressful than a couple of tired hacks.
That's what she's trained for. That's what she's there to do. Press conferences are a waste of time. They're a waste of the audience's time. They're a waste of the sports people's time.
Well, why are they there?
They're a waste of the media's time.
Because the fans love it.
Really?
And here's the thing.
Really?
Of course. For example, a Spurs fan wants to see Harry Kane after the game, sweating, still out of breath,
Yeah.
explaining why he missed that penalty.
Quote to me
It
one,
is the
as a
drama
Spurs fan,
of sport.
Quote to me one word of wisdom that you've heard uttered from Harry Kane or any other player after a match. Nothing. They're just gone in the ether and they're there just to fill
Steve,
airtime.
it's more than the sum of their parts. My kids, who are absolutely addicted to, obsessed with football, they insist on waiting for the post-match interviews after the game because it is that moment with the hero of the hour, the footballer, perhaps the captain that's just scooped the trophy, okay? And it's the theatre of sport. You know, what's the manager going to say? He's under pressure now. Is he going to lose his job? You know, also, if you watch a footballer or a sports star like Naomi Osaka, it's not necessarily exactly what she says. It's what she doesn't say. Reading between the lines. The fans get to be an analyst. And don't forget, Fleet Street needs something to write about. And there's a lot more material from those press conferences than a lot of the games, which are actually boring.
What she doesn't say anything. Because sports stars don't say anything in those interviews. And you know what? Here's the issue.
But the fans want to see the stars. They want to see them.
Do you know what? Follow them on social media. Because these press conferences and post-match interviews are now redundant. Because the sports stars, the sportsmen and women can now converse direct with them.
What about our listeners, which have gone up since you joined, so well done. But doesn't mean I'm going to not take you down, which I am, Big Steve Morgan. Our listeners who pay a lot of money to watch Premier League football, for example, with Sky subscriptions, they buy the shirt, which is astronomically expensive. They buy the season tickets. They're entitled to ask a Stoke midfielder why he missed that penalty or why he played so badly.
Hold on,
it's accountability.
Then there's no accountability.
They are rich millionaires. They are being held to account by journalists saying, "Why did you play so badly today?"
Footballers have
they have a public duty to explain.
Have no obligation.
We own them, Steve.
They have no obligation to do a post-match interview.
I own Harry Kane.
No, you don't.
I've paid for Harry Kane.
Daniel Levy.
I bought the shirt.
Daniel Levy
I bought the
owns him.
season ticket.
You own nothing. And the reason for that is because these press conferences, post-match interviews are there simply to fill airtime. You as a fan...
I pay their wages.
Well, if you want something as a fan, either pay more... I'd pay more for my season ticket if it meant I didn't have to endure this penalty after a game.
I'm not going to do OnlyFans with Harry Kane because, you know, he's not my type. Look, here's what we've got to say. The business of the game as well. So we talked about the theatre of sport. And I think that the press conferences are very much about the theatre, the drama. You know, Serena Williams has lost the Grand Slam. What's her reaction? You know, and even if she doesn't say much, it's the expression on her face, the rage, the anger. That's what sport's all about.
You're living in another era.
And I'll give you one other one.
You're confusing this when sports stars were more unguarded. When Muhammad Ali would come out and speak from the heart. When you had people like Brian Clough and others
the best moments of sport.
Another era that was so unguarded, so unscripted,
Sir Alex Ferguson.
so off the cuff when he was speaking to the press. So off the cuff, you would get something and it would make sensational headlines. Now, all you get is enough to put you to sleep. So I say to Naomi, thank you for sparing us that added tedium of the press conference after a tennis match.
One final thought, and this is the business model of sport. The wealth that's created from a sport like tennis is because of sponsors, and the sponsors are waiting for the press conference. That's the moment at which the player stands in front of a backdrop with all of the different brands that are bankrolling the prize money. You've got the actual star like Naomi Osaka covered in sort of, you know, endorsements, whether it's her baseball cap, her tracksuit, her racket, you name it. Now, someone like Naomi Osaka, who I hasten to add is a great athlete and I'm a fan, but she hasn't hesitated to take the money from the sport. So why now is she killing the very business model that has made her rich?
She's not at all. And just
no press conference, that's less income. If you get rid of the press conferences, that is a major gap in the income.
So just someone who happens to be blessed with tremendous hand-eye coordination has to stand in front of a backdrop.
Well, you've got that, by the way.
Has to stand in front of a backdrop with Cooper's creosote on it.
Yes,
and
you're
does. Telling me that is important when every sponsor has come out.
It's a business.
Well, let me tell you about business.
I mean, shall we scrap the ads?
Let me tell you about business.
Shall we scrap the ads on Talk Radio?
Every sponsor has come out in support of Naomi Osaka because they realise that tennis and the press conference is outdated in their response to this.
Well, you have proved why you are a very persuasive man. You are our glorious leader, but on this we must disagree. But then again, this is the Mark Dolan Show, the home of big opinions. And you've just given a very big opinion. Let's give a round of applause to our leader. Come on, I think he's earned it. And what I've got to
Thank
do...
you, Mark. Thank you.
Steve feels very strongly about this. We had the pre-show meeting and you stood, to your values and your opinions. We don't agree, but what do you think? 03444991000. I'm going to make a pledge now, which is I'm willing to do a post-show press conference after every drive time program. Okay, it's not easy for me. I come out at 7:01. I'll be sweating, I'll be out of breath, but I will answer your questions and I'll tell you why I've done a great show, and more importantly, I'll tell you when I haven't done a great show, and I'll explain myself to you, the audience, because you own me and I own Harry Kane.
Mr. Dolan, how do you think the show went today?
Probably the best performance of my career. I mean, basically I was articulate, I argued with everyone, I won all the arguments, and we had great guests.
But Mark, in future, how are you going to evaluate your performance?
Listen, our audience is growing. I mean, Talk Radio is the fastest growing current affairs network in the country. So basically, I can't improve.
Mark, will you commit to a drug test?
No further questions. Thank you very much.